You do not age because of time, but because your body is quietly filling up with things it cannot process. When that burden is lifted, rejuvenation is no longer a dream, but a natural cellular response. My name is Ethan Marshall, a 60-year-old physician from the United States. I have worked in the field of health for decades, and I want to begin with a sentence that may make you uncomfortable. Many people are getting younger on the scale, yet aging inside their own cells. It sounds paradoxical, but it is something I have observed repeatedly throughout my career. Before going any deeper, if you are looking for perspectives on health and aging that are different, slower, but more grounded in reality, please subscribe to the channel, hit like, and share this video to support us in continuing to produce content that does not chase trends, but goes straight to the core. Returning to the topic, most people who turn to raw eating begin with a very familiar goal: weight loss. They want to feel lighter, leaner, and see results quickly. And indeed, they do lose weight. But what is interesting is that after a few weeks or months, many tell me that the biggest change is not the number of pounds lost, but how they feel inside. They wake up feeling lighter, their mind feels less foggy, their skin looks less dull, and sometimes it is simply seeing more life in their eyes when they look in the mirror. That is when I often tell them that they have just touched the real reward of raw eating: rejuvenation at the cellular level. At the ages of 50, 60, or 70, we no longer need promises of looking 20 again. What the body desires more is to function smoothly, with less burden and less wear. When eating becomes closer to nature, the body has a chance to return to its inherent biological rhythm, a rhythm many have forgotten for decades. Rejuvenation, in this context, is not about fighting time, but about stopping the body from exhausting itself internally. It is not loud or dramatic, but it is real, and precisely because it happens quietly, many people miss or underestimate its value, simply because they are too focused on the number on the scale. Before moving on, I want you to ask yourself a simple question and leave your comment below. A. Do you care more about how much weight you lose? Or B. Do you care more about how your body functions day by day? When discussing the burden of dead food, it is necessary to face the physiological reality that each meal does not only provide energy, but also creates a substantial workload for the body. Refined foods, foods cooked at high temperatures, or deeply industrially processed foods contain little to no natural enzymes and have lost much of the living water that allows digestion to occur gently. As a result, the body is forced to mobilize additional energy, endogenous enzymes, and stored minerals to break down, neutralize, and eliminate these substances. In adults, and especially in older age groups, digestive efficiency naturally declines according to biological rules. So the same heavy meal consumes far more internal resources than it did in youth. This explains why after meals rich in processed foods, many people experience bloating, fatigue, drowsiness, or reduced concentration. This is not random, but a sign that energy is being prioritized for digestion. When this state repeats over long periods, the body must constantly deal with the aftermath, while processes of repair and cellular regeneration are pushed into a secondary role. At the same time, metabolic byproducts that are not fully eliminated tend to accumulate, particularly in environments rich in altered fats, refined sugars, and additives, creating conditions for chronic low-grade inflammation. This silent inflammation does not cause dramatic symptoms immediately, but it gradually erodes cellular function over time, contributing to reduced tissue elasticity, diminished adaptability, and an accelerated pace of biological aging. From an energetic perspective, dead food can be viewed as a hidden cost. Every day, the body must pay extra to process substances that are inherently incompatible with its biological structure. When this cost exceeds the body's tolerance, other systems are forced to make sacrifices, from immunity and endocrine balance to stress recovery. It is important to note that this burden depends not only on how much one eats, but on the quality and vitality of the food. Two people may consume the same number of calories, But the one who chooses foods rich in water and minimally processed creates far less physiological strain than the other. Therefore, the core issue is not how much we eat, but how much work the body must do to process what is consumed. When this mechanism is clearly understood, it becomes evident that premature aging does not arise from a single factor, but from the accumulation of many small, prolonged burdens that stem directly from daily food choices. When the digestive burden is reduced, the body enters a fundamentally different physiological state, in which energy is no longer scattered, but redistributed toward foundational processes of maintenance and regeneration. This is the central mechanism explaining why raw eating can be associated with rejuvenation at the cellular level. Under normal conditions, a significant portion of daily biological energy is used to process, neutralize, and eliminate poorly compatible components from processed foods. When this pressure decreases, the body can prioritize processes that always exist but are often delayed, including the repair of microdamage in connective tissue, the restructuring of cell membranes, and the optimization of mitochondrial function. At the same time, raw foods provide an environment rich in living water and organic minerals in easily absorbable forms, contributing to improved intracellular hydration. Many biological observations indicate that dehydration at the cellular level not only affects the skin and surface tissues, but also reduces metabolic efficiency and the adaptive capacity of the entire system. When tissues are adequately hydrated, biochemical reactions proceed more smoothly, elasticity improves, and signs of degeneration gradually diminish. This is why the skin and eyes are often the first areas to show noticeable responses when the diet shifts toward living foods. In addition, the reduction of accumulated metabolic waste plays a crucial role in this process. Literature on clean eating and rational fasting consistently emphasizes that rejuvenation does not come from forcing the body to work harder, but from removing the factors that obstruct its natural function. As waste and mucus levels decrease, the internal environment becomes more open, allowing regulatory systems to operate with greater precision. This is particularly important in the context of aging, where small imbalances in biological equilibrium can lead to significant consequences over time. Some recent nutritional observations also suggest that diets rich in fresh fruits and vegetables are associated with improvements in low-grade inflammatory markers, which are considered foundational to many manifestations of biological aging. Although these changes occur slowly and without dramatic effect, they reflect a consistent principle. When the body is placed in conditions with fewer obstacles, it will naturally prioritize maintenance and restoration of structure. Rejuvenation, in this framework, is not a forced or aggressive intervention, but the logical outcome of restoring an operating environment that aligns with the body's original biological design. Real-world evidence and observed experiences play an important role in clarifying the consistency of the rejuvenation process when a cleansing diet is applied. The case of Teresa Mitchell, a student of the ARID approach, is often cited not because it is exceptional, but because it reflects a pattern of change repeated across many individuals. According to recorded descriptions, her improvements did not occur suddenly or dramatically, but unfolded through a series of small yet sustainable changes. More stable energy levels throughout the day, reduced heaviness after meals, and a gradual yet noticeable improvement in overall appearance. What is notable is that these changes occurred alongside a reduced reliance on processed foods, rather than being linked to any strong intervention or external stimulation. In a broader clinical context, observations among middle-aged and older adults reveal a similar common thread. Many do not describe their experience using the language of becoming younger, but rather aging less, an expression that accurately reflects the biological nature of the process. Subjective reports often focus on foundational aspects such as reduced morning joint stiffness, improved sleep quality, and greater ability to maintain focus in daily activities. These manifestations are not isolated indicators, but are closely tied to an internal environment that presents fewer obstacles to regulatory systems. In particular, the reduction of digestive pressure and waste accumulation appears to allow the body to allocate resources more efficiently, thereby improving recovery from stress and adaptation to aging. These real-world experiences also demonstrate that biological rejuvenation does not mean completely reversing the marks of time, but slowing the rate of functional decline. When systems operate closer to the optimal state for a given age, quality of life improves naturally, without the need for unrealistic expectations. The consistency among personal stories, despite differences in background and starting points, reinforces the argument that shifting dietary patterns toward cleansing does not affect only one isolated aspect, but creates a cascading effect throughout the entire body. It is precisely the repetition and stability of these observations that give them greater value than any single promise, as they reflect how the human body responds when placed in conditions more compatible with its inherent biological structure. When all arguments are synthesized, a consistent conclusion emerges. Biological aging is not an inevitable and purely time-driven outcome, but the cumulative result of prolonged internal burdens, with metabolic waste and a poorly ventilated biological environment playing a central role. Time serves only as a backdrop, while the rate of functional decline depends largely on how the body must adapt to what it receives each day. In this perspective, rejuvenation is not an effort to oppose natural laws, but a process of removing factors that cause those laws to operate unfavorably. Internal cleansing, beginning with food choices that better align with biological structure, creates conditions for natural regulatory systems to function more efficiently. Raw eating, or at least increasing the proportion of fresh living foods, should not be understood as an extreme therapy or rigid goal, but as a practical starting point for reducing bodily load. When digestive pressure and accumulation decrease, the body tends to allocate energy more economically, prioritizing structural maintenance, functional stability, and the repair of micro-damage. This is particularly meaningful in middle and later life, when biological compensation is no longer as abundant. Rejuvenation in this context is expressed through systems operating closer to the optimal state for one's current age, rather than pursuing unrealistic expectations of fully reversing time. Returning to simpler choices with minimal intervention and respect for natural biological rhythms does not diminish the value of scientific progress, but rather provides it with a more sustainable foundation. Instead of seeking complex, costly, or short-term stimulatory solutions, this approach emphasizes the role of removing obstacles and creating favorable conditions for the body's inherent self-regulating capacity. When placed in an environment that conflicts less with its biological design, the human body demonstrates a remarkable tendency toward recovery and stability, even at advanced ages. Therefore, the core message does not lie in promises of instant youthfulness, but in the recognition that every daily dietary choice contributes to shaping the long-term trajectory of aging. Rejuvenation, in this sense, is not a separate destination, but the natural outcome of a process of cleansing, reducing burden, and nourishing the body in ways more aligned with its biological nature. The entire content presents a different way of looking at aging and health. The issue is not how fast or slowly time passes, but how the body bears the cumulative pressures of daily life. When food no longer aligns with biological structure, the body must expend energy to process it, slowing processes of repair and maintenance. Conversely, when this burden is reduced, energy is reallocated to more foundational functions such as cellular regeneration, systemic stability, and the preservation of biological flexibility. Rejuvenation, therefore, is not an attempt to fight natural law, but the result of removing factors that cause those laws to function unfavorably. Raw or clean eating is not an absolute destination, but a means of helping the body return to a state of operation with fewer obstacles, thereby slowing the aging trajectory and improving quality of life in a sustainable way. An important lesson that emerges is that long-term health does not come from strong, fast, or complex solutions, but from small, consistent adjustments in daily living. Rather than focusing on short-term results, prioritizing the reduction of bodily load through more natural, water-rich, minimally processed food choices can create meaningful differences over time. In practice, this can begin very simply. Increasing the proportion of fresh fruits and vegetables in meals, gradually reducing processed foods, and observing how the body responds, particularly in terms of energy, sleep, and mental clarity. In your view, which factor most strongly influences the feeling of aging in the body each day? Eating habits or prolonged lifestyle stress? Please share your perspective respectfully in the comments. If you would like to explore deeper knowledge on natural healing, please fill out the form in the description to receive a health ebook as a gift, and subscribe to the channel, hit like, and share this video to support us in continuing to deliver valuable and sustainable content.